versions of idea of India that is being talked about since 1947 or perhaps even before 1947. There is one version that British propagated, and unfortunately most of the Nehruvian historians actually carried it forward. That was India is something like nation in the making, that British brought India together, and it was British who, made us one country. Then there are communist historians who actually went ahead, and in Tamil Nadu it got popularity that India was never a nation, India can never be a nation, India is a conglomeration of many nationalities. So it is a home nationalism, it is a Tamil nationalism, it is a Bengali nationalism, but there is nothing called Indian nationalism. And there is third stream, which I think is becoming a mainstream now, which believe that since ancient time, the idea of Bharata as a civilizational nation with eternal continuity has existed. Nowhere in the world we find this kind of continuity, geographical, cultural, and whatever the parameter you choose, whether time or space. And what I believe, that in this land, with complete devotion to the idea of Bharat Mata, Subramaniam Barathiyar actually represented that tradition of civilizational nationalism about India.
Very true.
So I would like to start a conversation on this. How do you see his ideas about nationalism and Indianness, especially through not just poetry but even journalism?
Right. So as Ketkar ji was saying, this idea of Bharata, we seem to had it for a very, very long time. But over the past 60 years, at least here in Tamil Nadu, sort of lost it. We've lost, because we lost Barathiyar to a large extent. Barathiyar was replaced by Bharathidasan in the popular consciousness. So we sort of lost that idea of Bharata. So what Barathiyar did was, he once again, after 200 years of British rule, a lot of our traditional institutions were lost, a lot of traditional thought was lost, the thought leaders of those times were probably done away with. They needed something to latch on to get on this nationalist bandwagon. And he did that very successfully through making Tamil poems accessible. Like some of the speakers earlier said, the Tamil poetry earlier was very technical. He popularized nationalism through accessible poetry. That was one of his great contributions, and that sort of was a tipping point for growth of nationalism in Tamil Nadu. So that is one aspect of Barathiyar. Another aspect is his role as a journalist. He ran, I think, n number of papers. Why n number of papers is because at that time people are not very literate. One. Number two, there was a lot of government repression. So if you start one paper with one name, they would clamp down on it. You have to close it down, go somewhere else, start another newspaper with a different identity. So he ran a number of different newspapers. And through that, in very, very simple language, he communicated complex ideas. And all these ideas were pointing to only one thing: one India, one Bharat, and this Bharat should be free. This was his great contribution as a journalist.
See, another person I can recall who, in fact, not just started but inspired many people to take up journalism as a profession, and that was Pandit Madan Mohan Malviya. Barathiyar, a very important phase of life he spent in Kashi, Banaras. He had a very close association with the initial years of BHU also. Though BHU later founded formally, it was a Hindu college then in 1909-10. Now recently we have seen Tamil Kashi Sangam. I was amazed to see the kind of connect that people coming from Tamil Nadu having with River Ganga and Kashi, both. It is amazing. And
it is not something alien to people of Tamil Nadu, right? It is a part of our culture. You celebrate Mahamaham here. This is all part of the continuity of sacredness of water. This idea is all pervasive. So it is Kashi is also not alien because for you have 10 number of Kashi Vishwanatha temples here, and Tenkasi temple is also said to be the original Kashi Vishwanatha deity which was there, which has been carried here and planted here. So Kashi is not something apart because we are part of the same cultural continuity, right? So Kashi is part of Tamil cultural continuity. Tamil Nadu is part of Kashi's cultural continuity.
No, I want to understand how do you see that influence of Kashi in Barathiyar's writing and his ideas about nationalism?
I have visited Kashi 4-5 times, not more. But whenever I visited there, I always felt this is the center of the universe. You wait here long enough, you will meet everybody on this planet at some point of time. So this is a sort of place where people from all over the country come because it is the fulcrum on which I think this entire our culture rests. Somehow, I don't know why, I can't explain why, but you can meet people from every part of the country there. So once you go there, you stay there for a while, you get into touch with all sorts of cultures, and you realize all of this is a different expression of the same. Just like how we think about our gods. So all different cultures of India are different expressions of the same idea, the Sanatana Dharma. So this is how I think it must have influenced Bharat.
See, what I find another interesting aspect is the titles he chose for his publications. On the one hand, there is India itself, but some of them are connected to Swadeshi, some of them are connected to Bal Bharat, some of them are specifically focusing on social reforms and women empowerment. So, these titles themselves do not actually limit it to the Tamil Nadu or Tamil pride or Tamil nationalism. They are more going beyond it and addressing the larger population.
Yes, most of his works are national in character. So he celebrates Tamil, he celebrates Tamil Nadu, there is no denying
Or
it.
for that matter, Chakravartin and
Yes.
the Hindu of those times also.
Yes. So he celebrates the nation more than he celebrates Tamil Nadu, which is what I feel. He celebrates the nation in Tamil. So we feel that his work is not accessible outside Tamil Nadu. So we feel that it is all about Tamil Nadu only. But his work is national in character. He was very. One more thing about his works is, and what we are missing in journalism today is passion. Passion in the work itself. Journalists are passionate about their work, but over a period of time, due to westernization, Western influences, we've been trained to be neutral, dispassionate, and convey only the dry facts. This is what is being told to us, has been told to us again and again. But why was Barathiyar very successful as a journalist is because there was passion in his work. We call it biased and one-sided today. But he was very passionate about putting his point of view across and making sure that everybody gets some sort of feeling after reading that. हमारे reports, I mean, what we write today, कोई feeling नहीं है. You won't get any feeling out of reading all those things. It is very dry, very analytical. So why is social media so popular today compared to your traditional media, even compared to television? It's full of passion. It's full of feelings. So that is something that I think we are missing and which we need again in journalism to re-invoke this feeling of Barathiyar in Tamil Nadu at least.
I'll come to that journalism aspect later. What I found interesting is Barathiyar is not like just any other freedom fighter. Of course, he was a tough freedom fighter who decided to fight against the British, who went on to go to Pondicherry and take inspiration from Arvindo's revolutionary legacy. Also, it's more a spiritual revolutionary legacy. But another important thing that I find is the saintly tradition that we have. The Shankar Deva in Assam, or Narsi Mehta in Gujarat, or Guru Gobind Singh in Punjab. Sikh and Sikhism had a very great influence. In fact, after that, he started wearing turban and keeping beard. It was again during his Kashi stay.
Very syncretic that way.
Yes, yes. So, what I found is that many of the ideas that he picked up from these saintly traditions and reinvoked them in Tamil through his poetry and through his writings in journalistic genre also. So how was it made possible for Bhatia to integrate all these ideas and bring it in the 20th century? Because it was a tradition, so to say,
Right.
throughout India.
Going through his works, you always feel that he is not judgmental about any cultural expression, any Bharatiya cultural expression. He is in fact proud about it. He takes inspiration from it. Each and every expression of Bharatiya culture, of Sanatan Dharma, seems to have invoked something in him. Some sort of inspiration. This is also possible. This is also possible. So he saw greatness in every expression of Sanatan Dharma. And which is why I think he brought everything that invoked some passion in him and condensed it into a very nice poetry.
Another favorite topic that we find in Tamil Nadu is this entire debate of language imposition. And what I find very curious about Mahakavi Subramanyam Bharati is that he was, of course, his first love in linguistic term was Tamil, but he was equally proficient in Hindi, in English, in many other Indian languages, and still he took pride in Tamil. Now, how do you see the relevance of that tradition in the present debate? Because all Indian languages flourish together. In fact, before 1920s and 1930s, I tried to visit many original documents during entire British period, and surprisingly, barring few debates in Uttar Pradesh regarding Hindustani and Urdu, there is no language debate at all till 1930s and 40s. In entire Indian history, we had many more languages, we had many more dialects, but we never fought on the basis of languages. Why suddenly this fight on the basis of languages?
So that started really because of what you mentioned, right, of the debate between Hindustani or Urdu. we know how it started. I don't want to go very deep into it, but I think that sort of sparked the interest of certain politicians about how powerful this issue can be. The what you, in Tamil we call it Veeryam. I don't know what you say for that in English. Um, so how powerful this language as a political tool can be. There was really there has been a long process of Sanskrit, Tamil coexisting. And during this long process, Tamil has not disappeared. So what I always tell everybody who talks about this imposition and Tamil disappearing is that Tamil is not so weak that it will disappear just because another language is taught to you. English, everybody is been educated in English now. Almost everybody in Tamil Nadu. Has Tamil disappeared? No. So Tamil is not such a weak language, but it started because of that initial Hindustani Urdu debate about what to teach in school.
Another interesting influence that I find, and many people may not be aware of this, that very significant meeting that Barathiyar had with the disciple of Swami Vivekananda, Sister Nivedita. And since then, he started talking about emancipation of Shakti. He never used the word women's rights, he never used the word freedom, he never used the word feminism, and still his poetry is his writings are all about, real empowerment of women.
These terms that we talk about, feminism, emancipation, these are all very Western ideas. Even we today don't have a very clear idea about what the exact role of women was in society, say 500 years ago, before the Delhi Sultanate came. What was the role of women in the society? What sort of rights they enjoyed? Because we don't have a very good tradition of keeping records about what we do. We are very poor at it. Indians as a whole are very poor at it. Uh, Shakti, I think it is a very interesting interpretation, probably a reinterpretation of the Western ideas that he did to envision this entire thing, this entire spectrum of problems that we name as emancipation, feminism, so many things. Um, I think he just condenses everything into this one Shakti so that people can easily understand. That was his thing again and again. Simplify everything.
Uh, there is another aspect. His association with Congress as a movement was very curious. In fact, he was part of that very critical session in Surat. And he decided to support the Tilak faction. So, do you see any prospect, any possibility of reviving that connect of Kashi, Arbindo, Tilak, and that spiritual nationalism that Subramaniam Bharati represented?
Even during the Surat session, the Congress was still in the form in which it was conceived initially. So we know the Congress was conceived so that things don't get out of hand for the British rulers. And it was composed mostly of the so-called moderates, who we call moderates right now, who basically didn't want any panga and they just wanted to talk things out with the British to get some of their work done, get some perks here and there. They didn't really have a great idea about freedom. Initially, they didn't have it.
No, they essentially believed in the wisdom and the justice of British Raj.
Yes,
So
yes.
they believed that, putting some petitions and demands to the British Raj will automatically lead to,
Yes.
and somehow it was a divine dispensation in their wisdom.
Yes.
So, but Surat session was a, complete departure from that tradition.
it was a departure because it was a disruption to their tradition, all their sessions so far. So that is when this, Tilak comes out as a big character, and it is, I think it is only natural Subramania Bharati went in that direction because he was a revolutionary kind of guy. He wanted to get things done now, get freedom today, if possible, this minute. So Tilak would have appealed to him much more than the so-called moderate faction.
One important aspect that I would like to highlight is Subramaniam Bharati was a very important force in this entire movement against partition of Bengal. Though people generally talk only of Lal, Bal and Pal, Lala Lajpat Rai, Bipin Chandra Pal and Bal Gangadhar Tilak. In Tamil Nadu, Vangabhanga and Vande Mataram got lot of traction, and I find it very surprising when I see lot of voices coming from Tamil Nadu, present day Tamil Nadu, that time Madras province, against the partition of Bengal. Now Bengal was partitioned, it was just a Bengali speaking province, partition on religious lines, entire nation gets together to fight against it and fight in such a way that British were forced to take back that partition in 1911. So 1905 to 1911, the kind of nationalism that we see in this land, why did we suddenly miss that in the post-independent period?
See, during that time, I would say, I mean, this touches on very sensitive topics which I don't want to talk about. Um, right. So at that time, I think we still had some sort of, mostly thanks to the works of Barathiyar, which made nationalism very catchy. Any division based on religion will, I think people had an idea that it will become permanent. Although, I mean, they are planning this and this will become permanent. That sort of fear was there, and since we always envisioned Bharat as a much larger entity than what it is today, uh, we how do I put this? I mean, see, as a Sanatana Dharma, even if something is happening in Ladakh, or if you say tomorrow Ladakh is going to be taken away from you, from Bharat, you've never been to Ladakh, but you still feel very bad about it. Because that is part of your soul, that is part of your consciousness, right? But today I think what has happened is uh, we've moved, a lot of people have moved away from their roots, especially with the very fast pace of urbanization. And once you move away from your roots, and what is influencing us today is not our ancient thoughts. It's for a majority of people that is not what is influencing their daily lives. We are very enamored by the West. We have that mentality where English is still superior. Uh, these are the kind of cultural trends that have taken us away from that sort of thinking. That हम वो भी हमारा है. That thinking is gone. Maybe they feel Kashmir should have decide things on that.
Now, I would like you to speak on a subject that has been close to the heart of each and every person of India, especially in southern India, that is close to your heart also. This entire debate about temples. Temples and yatras played very critical role in this nationalism and connectivity. If you see 1857, for instance, many people think, oh, nothing happened in South. It's not the case. In fact, I feel that right from 1498, the time Vasco da Gama arrived, Since then, South was continuously fighting. In fact, we find similar kind of actual freedom movement happening from 1780s to 1840s. In this part of the world, what started happening because in the north, because perhaps that time settling the things with Islamic invasion was more important for north. So that's why you find Velunachiyar and Maruthapandian brothers and they coming up with this Jambudvipa declaration. Then we realize that temples are critical. Then we realize that saving these temples are critical. How we can bring back that in our debate, in our media discourse, and what do you think that this essence of temples in saving this civilizational nation? What should be the approach?
So temples, the kshetra is important. How important it is the Puranas, from the time of the Puranas, they have extensive lists of kshetras of this Bharata Desha. So whatever is Sanatana Dharma country has been mapped out extensively in the Puranas. In a very detailed manner. So whoever may be ruling over the land, that is immaterial for us. Maybe today Pallava is ruling, tomorrow Chola is ruling, that is immaterial. But Divya Kshetra is there, and these Divya Kshetras have been mapped very nicely in the Puranas. So what we get is again one thread, which is Sanatana Dharma, and these are all temples. The Purana has a story for the temple, but they are not temples based on the same sort of substrate. For example, temples in the south are based on Agama Shastra. So Bengal, they are based on some Tantra Shastras. In Kerala, they are based on some other Tantra Shastras. So there's a huge diversity here. Despite these diversities, the Punya Kshetras are all listed with equal importance. Nobody says, the Purana doesn't say these people are from a different point of view, thought process, they have established this temple, so this is not relevant to us. From that, what we understand is, this Sanatana Dharma, it accepts everything. Every expression of itself, it accepts. And we can see the proof of that is in the Puranas. So today, what has happened is, after the establishment of the HRNC or the Devaswam boards elsewhere, the same thing that has happened with our water management systems has happened to the temples as well. So we had a very beautiful water management system, especially in Tamil Nadu, where the areas, the tanks, the irrigation tanks would be managed by the community, the farmers themselves. They would be responsible for desilting it, they would be responsible for water sharing. Everything would be done at the community level, and these systems are functioning beautifully. These common goods, the public goods, were being utilized for the benefit of the community. Temples were also made as common goods, as public goods, for the benefit of the community. How the PWD broke down this entire system with irrigation, HRNC did the same. There is no doubt that HRNC has to be done away with. Number one, what it does is it locks away the resources of the Hindu community into the hands of somebody else. We are no more in control of our resources so that we can provide for our own community. Everybody thinks that if HRNC is done away with, what will happen? Who will take care of these temples now? Some profit-minded individuals may take over. They may exploit the temple's heritage. They may exploit the temple's popularity to make money. My view is quite controversial on that. I'm like, why not? Only if entrepreneurship is there, will there be people willing to invest their time and energy into it? Only if there is a possibility of profit. So only if that happens, it can
Not
spread.
just that, temples were not just places of worship. Temples had a very flourishing economy around it. Temples had a healthcare system around it. Temples had education system around it. Temples had a banking system around it.
Yes, banking was very important.
Banking was very important. So it's absolutely right. Why not give it back to community? See, Rabindranath Tagore, Gurudev, he is speaking in Bengal in somewhere in 1902-3. He is not just talking about water and temples. He is talking water, temple and yatras. He is talking about education. He is talking about healthcare. He is talking about even forest. And he is saying, he compiled that as a book called Swadeshi Samaj. And he is saying that society is truly independent. And you are absolutely right when you said we never bothered who is ruling the state. State was a secondary for us. For us, society and what society is controlling was much more important.
True.
Unfortunately, this entire legal framework introduced by the British, especially post 1860, has taken away our forests, taken away our water resources, taken away our temple, because they considered them as one as property, other as religious institution. Not beyond that.
Not beyond that. They didn't understand. I think more so they did it because they perfectly understood how it made this society function. They wanted to make it dysfunctional and dependent on an external apparatus. The self-sufficient societies break them down so that they can become dependent on us, on our system.
Now, in the last part, I would like to bring back to the media discourse. Now, we have discussed Subramanian Bharati, we have discussed Sanatan ideas. I really find it very difficult. Like, for example, this whole idea of secularism. You know, somebody is standing hand in glove with Owaisi, oh, it's a secular alliance. Somebody is standing with Yogi, oh, it's a communal alliance. Means, where does this come from? And we in media openly, mainstream these ideas. So, entire media discourse, essentially it starts in English, but eventually it comes down to our other Indian languages also in media platforms, and eventually they become the mainstream discourse of the society. Because I was asking somebody in some corner of Bihar, I remember when I started my journalistic thing in 1990s, it was I think 1999 election, and I was asking somebody why you wouldn't vote for, he said, I will vote for this and this person. I said, why? So, he, in a typical Bihari accent, he said that he is very secular. बहुत सेक्युलर है. अब बहुत सेक्युलर है, an illiterate person is saying, who is responsible for that? And the constitution did not accept that idea in terms of secularism, because we believe that respect for all ways of worship is a Sanatan idea. So we shouldn't have that word. And youngsters should especially dwell upon this. In 1949, when we accepted our constitution, there was no word called secularism. In fact, it was discussed and deliberately decided that we shouldn't have this word. In 1975, when emergency was, proclaimed, and entire opposition was in jail, without any parliamentary discussion, it was inserted in the constitution. Just do one exercise and try to understand, even after having the background of partition, from 1949 to 1975, whether we were really secular or communal, and after inserting this word, whether we have become more communal or less secular. So, but the point is, why media is so much guided by these foreign ideas, foreign concepts, how can we bring them back to the tradition of Tilak or Subramaniam Bharati or even Sri Aurobindo? There were many revolutionary journalists or Pandit Madan Mohan Malviya who inspired journalism for the social cause, for the national cause. How can we bring back that tradition in media? Or it is now gone forever?
I think one entire generation of journalists have to go if what you propose have to happen. It is very, very difficult to bring it back, is what I feel. Uh, why? I'll tell you why. Because people like us who have this sort of belief about what we are talking about rootedness and where our thought process should come from, and people of means like us are not spending on the right things, are not spending on creating materials, content, whether it be video, books, or newspapers. They are not spending enough on it. Once you start spending enough on it, probably in the next 20 to 30 years, this thing will shift completely.
Do you see any hope in digital platforms? Because there are many alternative platforms and alternative faces that are coming.
Yes, there are coming. See, there are shining examples like Swarajya, but I think it is still not enough. We still need about 20 to 30 times of what it is today. We need 100 more platforms like this. So there must be more money being spent on this. There has been enough money being spent on the other side already, the left side. The money not only from India, from abroad also has been spent, and see, that is the only way to do this. It may sound absurd, but that is the only way to do this.
We have recently seen media platforms coming out and participating in a conference called Cutting South. But we are if we have to take the legacy of Barathiyar forward, then it cannot be without the Sanatan idea of Bharata, and perhaps that is the biggest takeaway that we should take from this conversation. You wanted to add something?
No, sir.
So I believe that that is perhaps the idea behind having Chennai Lit Fest, dedicating it to the legacy of Subramaniam Bhatia, and I hope that the younger generation takes inspiration from this conversation and raise right questions on based on Sanatan ideas for contemporary solutions. And if couple of ideas can click with the initiative of some new kind of startups for managing temples, for new kind of startups for reviving temple ideas for contemporary times, then perhaps we will be taking that idea.
Yes, I think startups for temples is a good idea.
Yes. So it was just thought because the next session is going to be on startups. So I thought that would be a real culmination point. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
I request you to stay behind to take few questions. Audience, the forum is open. You can ask questions. It was a beautiful session taking from the life of Mahakavi Subramania Bharati, his stay in Kashi and the impact of Kashi in his life, the meeting of Sister Nivedita and the impact of that meeting of Mahakavi Bharati, and his works on women emancipation. Anybody from the audience, if you're ready to ask any question, you may please raise your hands. We can bring the mic to you. While you still ponder about it, I will continue to talk about what these two gentlemen. Please come forward, sir. Surendranji, are you there? Could someone help them with the mic?
Hello, my name is Shrikant. I would like to look at this Ayodhya temple, which would be formalized by January, February, or before the election. Why can't Ayodhya temple itself be some kind of a pilot project for community? The way our entire temple ecosystem was run. I would agree with Mr. Ketkar kind of thing. I think what you had put is absolutely fact. Temples were far more than what typically we know. I mean, they were the center of local community, economy, systems, education, Gurukul, everything imaginable. So I think why can't Ayodhya temple? Okay, I do agree kind of a thing because I have been with ABVP, I have been on kind of a thing. What I'm trying to say is why can't Ayodhya be a role model? Okay, I think this can also give a very strong.
So the question is Ayodhya.
Yeah. So I'm saying this can also give a very strong political message to the left ecosystem. Thank you.
See, as far as this entire debate about temple management is concerned, I think we will have to see it from 2-3 different perspectives. There are many people who have worked consistently. What I have understood while discussing with many of the activists involved in Save Temple movement, that the situation in southern temples is quite different from what happened in the north. There, the destruction even before British arrival and state taking over temples was much more. So, Ayodhya in a way is becoming the model in two ways. One, imagine court has handed over the land, but the state has not taken over it. State has created an independent trust to manage it. Center has appointed the trustees for the time being till the construction work is done. Most of them are coming from the movement itself. So most of the sadhus and sannyasis associated with the movement, except Nripin Mishra, there is no bureaucrat, even ex-bureaucrat is involved. So in a way, the idea is not to control by the state. Two, Ayodhya is not going to be just a temple. After visiting and seeing the entire plan, I am assuring you, it is going to be a great center of learning. It is going to be a great museum, civilizational museum to see. It is going to be a great amalgamation center for all the sects of India where everybody can study. There will be a beautiful library involved in it. So from Mandapam to library, everything will be there, and hopefully this can eventually become a model for other places in north. But in south we will have to think it differently because fortunately we still have those symbols of our civilization existing with same structure, community having same relations with those temples, families having same, so Grama Devatas, Kula Devatas, all of them are symbols of our civilization. So we will have to think in different ways while we are talking about giving it back to devotees. So I think these two different models that we will have to think about, it's going to be a great exercise, and that's why we need a different kind of startup ecosystem that I just tossed up the idea while managing those temples.
That's a brilliant idea, that startup for temples. Anybody else? Any other question? So you may have to come here. Can someone please take the mic, help this gentleman with the mic? He's on the right side aisle. From the dais, right side aisle, an elderly gentleman, so thank you so much for taking the mic.
My question is whether we can bring a constitutional amendment to drop the word secular, which was introduced in 1975. India is a secular country because majority of the people follow a religion which has got religions, tolerance for all other religions. We are not secular because of our constitution. We are secular because of our ancient values. Why this word secular in the constitution? Can you not remove it by an amendment as we threw away Article 370? Thank you.
I think that was the thinking of our constitution makers also. But over the period of time, it has got so much of sanctity politically and intellectually that we will have to fight it differently. See the irony. The irony is, in Indian civilization, the state was always secular. And anywhere in the world, a nation cannot be secular. But the people who declared their religion as the state religion are considered as secular. Akbar is secular. See the irony. Shivaji Maharaj, who said, no, my religion, for my religious purpose, state money cannot be used. He is considered as communal. So the problem is not just with the word itself, but the political connotation of that word. And that's why we will have to create a public awareness, not just about this one concept that I just touched upon, but there are many such concepts related to freedom, choice, feminism. We will have to give them a different kind of Indian meaning. Like, for example, you use the word tolerance. Now, this is the most absurd word that we have been using. Have we been just a tolerant civilization? Do we just tolerate if we disagree with each other? Or as Swami Vivekananda said, we accept and respect all ways of worships. So our tradition is not just to tolerate, but to accept and respect. There can be your way of truth, there can be my way of truth, but there is still a belief that there is ultimate one truth. That is Indian civilization. So we need to take secularism discourse to this tradition of acceptance and respect for all, rather than this absurd European idea of tolerance and intolerance. Both are equally negative terms. It was coined because Protestants and Catholics were fighting with each other, and somebody told them that, oh, we need to tolerate each other till other accept your point of view. Ours is not that kind of civilization. We say, okay, you can have your point of view, we respect that, we will have Shastrat. After that Shastrat, we can reach to some conclusion, fine, otherwise you can walk your way, I can walk my way, both will respect it, both will not kill each other because of that disagreement. That is Indian point of view, that is Sanatan point of view we should talk about.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for this wonderful session and also taking the questions.
One more.
Mr. Karthik Chandrasekhar is here. He wants to ask a question.
Please.
Hello, temples. I want to know temples are active. I want to go temple and it is but what is the activity and I was because Chennai most temples are active because I wanted to go temples but most temples are active. I was temples active. How is that? Temple.
Do I repeat the question? So he's asking about how the temples could be made accessible and mostly like very popular. In terms of accessibility, how is Ayodhya temple and other popular temples where he wishes to actually travel but then couldn't access them because he hasn't found it accessible. So, and what are the measures and how are we going about it is his question. Thanks.
Have you tried visiting Kashi Vishwanath temple? If you try now, the new corridor that is built, it is accessible to each and every person, and the corridor is made in such a way that whether person coming from any caste or community or Divyang or anybody, there is accessibility possible while rejuvenating this entire temple architecture. All those things have kept in mind. When you are reconstructing or rebuilding something, this is possible. For old temples, we will have to work out a different kind of mechanism where society needs to be more sensitive. The temple management needs to be more sensitive. And over the period of time, I think most of the policies are going in those directions. But your concern is absolutely right. We need to sensitize people more, even community organizations more on those lines.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for taking up these questions. May I request Mr. Shyam Sundar to please come to the dais to honor the guests. That was really very, very nice taking us through the life of Mahakavi Subramanya Bharati, the journalism part of it, and how do we come back or bring back the nationalistic views in journalism. Thank you so much, sir.